everyone. I'm just going to give us another minute or two to get anyone in here from the waiting room. So welcome, and thank you so much for taking time out of your Sunday afternoon to be here with us today. This webinar is about navigating caregiving, and I've turned off all chat and participant interaction features so that we don't experience any disruptions during the presentation. After the presentation, which should take about 30 minutes, I will enable you to turn on your cameras and your microphones so that anyone who wishes to can ask me any questions you might have. I'm going to record this session to post it to my YouTube channel, but don't be concerned that your participation will not be visible in the recording, and I will turn off the recording before we start the Q&A at the end. So again, welcome and thank you for joining us today for this January installment of the Navigating Loss webinar series. This presentation is on navigating caregiving. And if you are joining us today, it is likely that you are either now or will be at some point in your life finding yourself serving as the primary caregiver for someone in your life. Right now in the US, about 1 in 5 people are providing unpaid care for someone who is elderly, disabled, or seriously ill. This is me. My name is Heili, and I have a private counseling practice in North Glen that specializes in loss, change, grief, and life transitions. I am accepting new clients and am able to schedule both in-person appointments at my office using COVID precautions, as well as provide telehealth sessions to anyone anywhere in the state of Colorado. Counseling is an encore career for me. At the age of 50, I finally got tired of people telling me that I'd missed my calling and I should have been a therapist. So I went back to school and I got my master's degree in clinical mental health counseling from Regis. And I'm now happily doing what I love for a living. I always knew that I wanted to be a counselor, but I wasn't sure what I wanted to specialize in until I started doing hospice work. I started out in patient care, working with people who were dying, and then I ended up spending my internship at the Grief Counseling Center. Being with people who are at the end of their life or who are mourning people who have died has really driven home for me what's important in life. And doing this work helps connect me with that and what makes life meaningful every single day. So I wanted to start out by providing you with some sobering statistics on caregiving. If you look at the insert in the upper right, you can see that only a small majority of caregivers, about 17%, spend about 10 hours a week or less providing care to someone else. The vast majority of people spend over 10 hours a week, with a full 27% spending more than 100 hours per week. As a conservative estimate, caring for someone can add what amounts to a full-time job to your life. And for many people, like these 29% who spend over 100 hours a week providing care to someone, caregiving becomes the primary focus of their lives for a period of time. There are a few different reasons for this. One is because of the skyrocketing cost of healthcare. People just don't have enough money to pay for in-home care or for the cost of assisted living facilities. So it tends to fall to family members and friends to provide care. Around 40% of caregivers are under the age of 60. So it's quite possible that you are still working and raising families of your own while taking on a caregiving role. Recent trends in the US demographics have seen each generation have fewer children and waiting until later in life to have them. So people are now finding themselves having to take on caregiving roles for their aging parents at a younger age and with fewer siblings to help out. Another trend is that people who never had children or are estranged from them are relying on good friends and neighbors to provide their care. About 10% of all caregivers are taking care of someone they're not even related to. Caregivers are predominantly women, about 60%. However, 40% of caregivers are men. And this usually happens when they're taking care of wives who are ill or disabled. Another trend is having to provide care for more than one person. The number of people caring for more than one person has jumped 18% in the last 6 years. And now about 1 in 4 caregivers has taken on multiple caregiving roles in their lives. And when you take on a caregiving role at a younger age, That means that you might have young kids of your own at home, or you're just starting to get traction in your career and it's difficult to get time off. On average, a little over 60% of caregivers have another job, but still spend around 24 hours a week caregiving. It's no wonder that this is taking a toll on the health of caregivers, with a quarter of caregivers self-reporting that caregiving has affected their own health in adverse ways. I found myself in exactly this situation in my own life. I was in my late 30s. I was working full time, had a very young child, and found myself taking on a caregiving role for a family member. It started out as just stopping by to check on him and bring groceries or meals a few times a week. But as his health deteriorated, it became all consuming, requiring me to be up all night sometimes and taking time off work to accommodate his needs, and then scrambling to learn about end of life and hospice care on the fly. So I thought I'd take a couple minutes here to reflect on what I wish I would have known then. The first thing I wish I would have known is the reality of what I was taking on. Caregiving is hard. Even on good days, it's hard. It's hard physically, emotionally, and spiritually. There are some wonderful and touching times as well, but even those times are hard. I felt so completely out of my element when it came to the physical realities of caring for someone who was dying. All of the doctor's appointments and ER visits and pain management and the loss of mobility, incontinence, needing assistance to bathe and toilet and feed himself. I had no idea where to turn for help. So I felt like I had just had to take it all on myself. And since I was one of the few people that he trusted, I felt like I had to do every single thing on myself without help. It became completely all consuming. And there were so many times when I would just sob in my car all the way home from the stress of it. I wish I had set better boundaries. I wish I'd called in reinforcements sooner and known how to handle all of the anticipatory grief that I was feeling as we lost little pieces of the person I had known along the way. So I'm not going to talk about the physical needs of the person requiring care because that's so individual and it's not really my area of expertise. That part will be something that you'll talk to your doctors about. What I'm talking about here is what the person you are caring for needs emotionally. Then we will get into what your needs are as the caregiver. The overarching need that everyone requiring care has is to retain as much control as possible. Being elderly or disabled or seriously ill requires giving up so much control. It is so important that they be given as much autonomy, control, and decision-making as possible. There is so much loss that it can be helpful to focus on what is still available to them. Let comfort and joy and pleasure be your guideposts and engage in whatever activities are still enjoyable for them. Talk about their life so far and what they've been most proud of, and let them know how they have shaped you and who you are and what legacy they're leaving behind. Sometimes we as adult children, especially us busy ones, just want to come in, fix the problem, and get on with things. But take the time to include the person in decision making and don't hesitate to ask them for advice about things in your own life or things that are going on in the family. I remember talking to one man at hospice at the care center while his family was out in the hall discussing his care. And he said, I sure wish they would talk to me instead of about me. It used to be that I was the one everybody came to with their problems. Now it seems I've become the problem. And that was a really sad and powerful thing for me to hear. Another need is to let them express whatever it is they're feeling. If they say, oh, I just wish I'd hurry up and die already, try to avoid saying things like, oh, mom, don't say things like that. Instead, say something that recognizes that these losses bring about a full range of emotion like anger and frustration and sadness and feeling like unfairly singled out. Instead, you might say something like, I know, mom, this must be so frustrating for you. I would be frustrated too if I were in your shoes. Even when people are dying or very, very sick, they might talk about things that they want, like wanting to take a sailboat ride around the world or build a cabin up in the mountains. Instead of pointing out that this is illogical and probably not going to happen, you could say something like, Wouldn't that be nice? Where would you want to go? Or if you could build that cabin anywhere in the whole world, where would you build it? Those types of things recognize the hope and the longing behind what was said and speaks to that part of them without reinforcing denial. I can't even tell you how many times I have had family members ask me not to mention the word hospice to the person who's dying. It's like they want to shield the person from who is dying from the reality of what's happening, only to be told by the person who's dying, I don't think I'm going to make it much longer, but please don't tell my family. What this does is create this environment where neither the person who is being cared for or the family members can have a genuine, open, honest conversation because each is so busy trying to protect the other one from reality. It's so much better to take the approach of plan A is for you to get better and not to need plan B, but let's talk about what we will do if plan A is no longer an option for us. You might run into some resistance when trying to have these conversations, but there's some great resources to get these conversations started the right way. One of them is to print out the Conversation Starter Kit on the Conversation Project website. The CDC website also has a really good checklist of what documents you should have in your care plan. And there's a form called 5 Wishes that walks you through different care scenarios. And the AARP website has a lot of good resources as well. There's this thing called the 40-70 rule. If you are 40 years old and your parents are 70, then you should already be having these conversations and getting these things into place. Explain to the person you're caring for that this is for you, so that you can advocate for them with confidence, knowing what their wishes are, and having had these conversations so that if something happens, you aren't guessing what it is that they would have wanted. This doesn't have to be, and in fact shouldn't be, just one conversation. It should be opening up a back and forth dialogue in which everyone can feel comfortable asking questions and sharing things as things change and evolve. Knowing what someone wants in the way of care gives a caregiver incredible peace of mind. And for the person who needs care, knowing that you have a proxy that knows what your wishes are and is committed to following through on them when you can't advocate for yourself gives them an incredible peace of mind. So this peace of mind means that down the road, there's more satisfaction and pride and peace when you think back on your caregiving role, and way fewer regrets and uncertainty and guilt. Try your best to maintain just a open, curious, positive, and empathetic mindset when you go into these conversations, even when you're feeling worried, frustrated, and scared. Maintaining an open, curious empathy will allow the person that you're caring for to feel comfortable sharing their full range of emotions and thoughts without having to hold back. So here's a slide that has a couple of, instead of this, try this. Using the basics of effective communication can really help you steer these conversations in the right direction. Instead of telling them what they should do or how they should feel, model open communication just by telling them how you feel. Start with an I statement and then invite them to tell you how they feel, and really listen to what they say when they reply. Not only the direct words, but be listening for the hopes and fears behind the words. Be empathetic to those things and don't argue or nag. This could sound something like, instead of saying you're too old to drive or you shouldn't be driving, say, there are a lot of reckless drivers on the road these days. Have you noticed that? I'd sure feel a lot safer if we could find a way to cut down on how much you're driving. Or instead of you shouldn't live alone, again, start with an I statement. I'm really worried that living alone could mean that something could happen to you and nobody would be here to help you. And then invite participation. Do you ever worry about things like that? And really listen to what they say. And then instead of coming in to nag, oh my God, this place is a mess. Haven't you cleaned up today? Maybe you could say something like, I'd like to get you a weekly cleaning service as a Mother's Day gift because I don't know what else to get you and you really deserve to be treated like a queen. Again, these are just ways to kind of model using I statements, being warm, open, curious, and empathetic, and inviting participation. And here are some tips on how to make someone feel heard. The first one is just to make time. Don't try to have these conversations on the fly. Stop by when you can spend some time and you don't have a billion tasks to do. Offer to help put them together some legacy projects. You could do a video interview of them. There's these things on the online, if you Google them, that are called Conversations of a Lifetime. And they're worksheets that you could use to do an interview of somebody and videotape it. Or put together a family tree with pictures from photo albums. People want to know they mattered and they don't want to be forgotten. And open up a conversation when you have time to hang out and get down to what really matters. Practice your active listening skills. Paraphrase what they said, repeat it back if it sounded important, and ask if you got that right. If something they are saying sounds kind of delusional or illogical, what is the emotion behind what they're saying? Is it fear? Is it anger? Are they frustrated? And speak to that instead of the illogical thing that they said. And most of all, just ask really good open-ended questions that can't be answered yes or no. And avoid why questions, as they tend to put people on the defense. Instead, ask as many how or what questions. This could sound like, how do you envision that happening? Or what would your ideal scenario be here? Now let's move on to what you need as a caregiver. First of all, I wanted to alert you to the signs of caregiver burnout. Then we can move into what to do if you're approaching burnout or to avoid it as much as possible. Caregiving is stressful, even in the best of circumstances. So if you feel yourself getting short and easily frustrated or quick to anger, or you're feeling forgetful and anxious and depressed, or just generally tired and uninterested in things that you've always enjoyed before and are just feeling hopeless or helpless, these are all warning signs that you need to get some support for yourself. I love elephants because they really function as a supportive community, and they help take care of the young, the sick, the dying. They share resources and they turn to each other when they need help. In one of my favorite books, it's Megan Devine's book, It's Okay That You're Not Okay. She gets a card from her friend when her daughter was killed that says, "Gather your elephants, love, we're here," which really describes the value of community. We would all be really well served by gathering our elephants. People don't know what to do or what to say, so they end up saying, "Let me know if you need anything," or "Let me know if there's anything I can do." And this does put the burden on you as the person who needs help to ask for it, but I'm encouraging you here to ask for it. When people say, "Let me know if you need anything," it can sound trite, but in most cases, people really do have a sincere desire to help. People just don't know what to do or what to say. You can give someone an enormous gift by giving them something that they can do for you. Have a list handy of things that you need or things that you could use some help with. Or pick a friend who's great at organizing things. And when someone says, "Can I help?" you can refer them to that person and say, "Oh, Tracy's coordinating everything I need. Here, let me give you her number and she can let you know what I need." If it feels strange for you to ask for help from others, just remember how good you feel when you get to help someone. And so reframe it as you giving someone who cares about you an opportunity to feel that. So sit down and make a list of the people you have in your circle of friends, family, and acquaintances, and create your Rolodex. So in the Rolodex, the R is for respite. And these people are the ones you can go and take a walk with, or they can make you laugh or give you a break from the heaviness. The L is for those people who are good listeners. You can call them when you need to talk and they won't try to fix you or change it. And the D is for your doers. This is that friend who can organize everything, do the meal train or help with household chores, or the guy next door who can mow your lawn or shovel your walk. And then the final one is X. And this is for people who just can't be there for you in the way you need right now. They might say or do all the wrong things, give terrible advice, or try to tell you how you should feel. These are the people that you can give yourself permission to X off of your list for now, or just create some distance from in the time being. Calling in reinforcements. These kind of reinforcements are separate from your friends, family, and acquaintances. These are the professionals. These are things you can outsource. And there are so many great resources in the community to help caregivers, and a lot of them are free or covered by insurance. So there are home health care agencies that can come in and help you around the house, or CNAs that can help with the physical things like bathing and dressing and feeding so that you can be there more for the person's emotional needs, or they can come provide respite care so that you can get out of the house and take a break. There are wheelchair outfitted ride services to help you get to doctor's appointments. And there are some great services that can help you find an assisted living facility that's right for you if caring for the person at home just becomes too much. And then there's home hospice care. A lot of people associate the word hospice with giving up, waiting to die, or worse, a service that hastens death. However, hospice is something that helps people make the most of whatever time they have left by focusing on comfort care and keeping people as comfortable and functional as possible for as long as possible. In most cases, it's covered by insurance and it's part of a continuum of care you receive, and cure is no longer possible, and the focus turns to palliative comfort care. You can go on hospice, and then if you start to feel better, you can go off again. To qualify for hospice care, you generally have to be thought to be within 6 months of the end of your life, but this can change. Some people are on hospice for years and are so glad to have this team of people to help manage their care. The hospice team will include CNAs to help manage, the personal care things, a nurse to monitor pain management and any medical changes and adjustments, a doctor who oversees the care and writes prescriptions, and a social worker who can help you find those valuable resources in the community to get you the help that you need. And then there's also a chaplain for any spiritual questions or family counseling that might be needed. Most people aren't afraid of being dead. What they're afraid of is what dying will be like. Will it be painful? Will I lose my dignity? Will I be a burden to people? Hospice helps alleviate those fears and has the goal of helping the whole family live as fully as possible. Hospice not only gives the patient the best chance of living as pain-free and fully as possible, it is a huge support for caregivers to have this team of professionals to rely on and ask questions of and call for help when it's needed. So everyone expects certain things when taking on a caregiving role. You expect it to be sad and stressful and overwhelming. But I hear so many people say that what they didn't expect was to feel so resentful and angry and short-tempered and unfairly singled out and just afraid and uncertain. It's not at all uncommon toward the end of a long and difficult caregiving role to start wishing for it to all be over. This doesn't mean that you're a terrible person or that you don't love the person you're caring for. It is important to make room for these more difficult emotions and just shed the guilt about those feelings and accept them as compassionately as you can, as part of the full spectrum of emotions you feel in this difficult and important role you've taken on. You've heard the old airport safety briefing cliche about putting on your own mask before attempting to help others. And this is certainly true in a caregiving role. One way to do this is to see a counselor. I know it can seem like you can't spare even 1 hour a week to focus on yourself, but there is a huge difference between giving of yourself from a place of being full and giving of yourself from a place of being completely empty and having nothing left to give. Counseling can help you fill your own cup, put on your own mask so that you can give from a place of having something left of yourself to give. There are some wonderful caregiver support groups too, and spending time with others who are in the same boat and can relate to this changed and weird world you find yourself in can make you feel so much less alone. And you get not only get the wisdom and support from others, you get to share what you know and with people and support each other through this challenging time. And there are little things that you can do, like finding ways to sneak in 5 or 10 minute breaks to do a quick recharge. Actively hunt for the good stuff every day and write them down in a journal so that you get in a mindset of looking for things to be grateful for. Some people feel like they were so busy handling the details of caregiving that they forgot to savor the time they had left with the person. So this reminds you, these journaling exercises or these quick breaks can remind you to stop and focus on what you still have. Focusing on the basics is important in caregiving as well, like eating well, getting enough rest, taking time to get some exercise, and even remembering to breathe. Like most things these days, there is an app for that. And you can set reminders for yourself to breathe, calm down, get 5 minutes of exercise or relaxation. Don't let the "I don't have time for that" voice win. You have the time. You can make the time. You just need to make it a priority to carve it out for yourself and get the help you need to make sure that you are able to do that. So that's the end of our formal presentation part of today's webinar. I thank you all again for coming and spending part of your Sunday afternoon with me. On this last slide, I have a reminder of some of the resources I talked about today. The 5 Wishes form, the Conversation Starter Kit, which can be found at the Conversation Project website, and AARP and caring.com both have a lot of resources. And this book by Mary Piper is about navigating the emotional terrain of the older generation. And this can be a really great thing to read if you're caring for older parents who were in the greatest generation, and even some of the older boomer generation. The last slide is my contact info and the location of my private practice. So if you or someone you know would like to do some individual counseling, I am accepting new clients. I have evening and weekend appointments available, and I do offer a sliding scale fee structure to make counseling affordable to anyone who needs it. I'm going to turn off the recording now so that we can start the Q&A session. And so this portion will not be recorded. I'll go ahead then